live in the future and build the parts that are missing. And we try to do that. We recently announced the availability of bill payments in the US. Now with Bitrefill, you'll be able to use your Bitcoin to pay for your mortgage, your credit card bill, your social security, local taxes, insurances, student debt, you name it, sort of debt and taxes, and you can pay for both with Bitrefill.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Bitcoin is Hard. This is a Choice App production about Bitcoin and personal finance. I'm your host, Brian Harrington. Today we have Sergej, CEO of Bitrefill, and he is, dare I say, an expert at just Bitcoin as money. And that's what I want to focus this entire conversation on for today, for as long as we go, is just simply Bitcoin as money. For individuals, we're going to get his insight, and for businesses, we're going to get his insight. Bitrefill just shipped a super interesting new feature that's bill pay. So bill pay from crypto. So we're going to dive in on that. But first, Sergej, tell us, how long have you been working on Bitrefill, and just what does Bitrefill do?
Oof, you go straight to the point.
Yep.
We've been working on Bitrefill for more than 7 years from the very humble beginnings. Bitrefill enables you to live on Bitcoin. Right. So the visionary goal that we are working towards, and the really hard problem in this entire space, is getting to the world where people start actually using the stuff as money to pay and get paid to live their life. And what we do in this regard is we have a customer centric approach, right? So we figure out how can we enable individuals to live on Bitcoin, and so we start from that and figure out what are the best paths, what creates a good user experience, and what are the best ways to achieve as many things as possible for people to be able to buy. So we keep talking about the circular economy, and I like to see us we're half of the circle. We're the chicken part, and we want to work with all of the eggs to come on board here as well.
Right.
In practice, the bread and butter of Bitrefill is that you can buy gift cards for e-commerce, for physical commerce as well. So you can just go on the site if you want to, pay for Uber. You get an Uber code, you redeem it in your app, and you buy the Uber code with Bitcoin or Lightning or regular on-chain payment, and it's done in seconds, and it's sort of very fast and convenient experience that many people appreciate. We also do phone refills of prepaid phones, which is very popular among in emerging markets and among unbanked people that have prepaid phones.
Because you're global, right? How many countries?
I don't know anymore. It's more than 100, and we have a lot of international products that work everywhere, and we have users everywhere. In terms of our analytics, there's 170 countries. I think we have gift cards in more than 100 countries at this point.
Perfect. And so for today, we're going to focus the discussion. So we're going to let the international learnings inform the discussion about the US. But what I'm so excited about is, and something that I think has really broke on Bitcoin Twitter in the last, I would call it 6 to 12 months, is this longer than that, but the pay me in Bitcoin movement, the pay me in Bitcoin hashtag has really gained popularity. And that has when you talk about the chicken or the egg problem, you talk about half of that circular economy, it's now become, I think it's become cool to be paid in Bitcoin. That has been solved. I remember 2 years ago working on Bitcoin meetups in getting a taco stand to accept BTC Pay server and still being met with this rush of why in the world would you do that? Why in the world would someone go and shop at this taco stand with Bitcoin? I was being met with that. And so lots of companies have pushed really well on that. And the pay me in Bitcoin movement has pushed really well on that, because now as soon as you're paid in this currency, it immediately then goes to, well, how can I get the daily things that I need for this? And then another concept just on the US focus, I meant to do this at the very beginning. Sergej, super shout out to Thomas on the Bitrefill team. I just wanted to publicly celebrate him for a minute, because he does really great work, and like a big reason why I'm on the phone with you today, and just a big reason why I've seen Bitrefill in so many meetups and just so much like grassroots love across the United States for real, is because of the work that he's been doing. So I just want to really like publicly celebrate him on that. It's cool, cool being his friend. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Thank you.
So
I agree.
yeah, yes, and so with all that, so any comments on the pay me in Bitcoin movement? Like, what do you think? Because what's so revolutionary about it is now there's half a dozen companies, I would say, maybe more, that now a regular W-2 employee here in America, just a person listening, participating in Bitcoin Twitter, but at a quote unquote regular job or whatever, not a crypto nomad, like they're getting a W-2 paycheck. There's half a dozen exchanges now that they can go in their back end, their ADP or their payroll processor, type in the checking account, type in the routing account from their crypto exchange, and have a W-2 paycheck deposited straight into Bitcoin. That has now turned the floodgates open to all of these people now being able to like live on Bitcoin. And so now people are searching for like coming at products like Bitrefill with, and I would think, a renewed enthusiasm of, hey, now that I'm being paid in this currency and using it as my base currency, now I can really start to dial in, how do I get my daily expenses? So yeah, any thoughts on like the pay me in Bitcoin movement?
I think it's amazing, and I think I mean when you start to doing that yourself, I don't know if you are in that category already. I'm guessing. Um, I mean, you start noticing the things that are missing, right? And there's this classic, I think it's a Mark Andreessen quote of like, live in the future and build the parts that are missing. And we try to do that. We recently, we didn't get to that. We recently announced the availability of bill payments in the US. Right. So now with Bitrefill, you'll be able to use your Bitcoin to pay for your mortgage, your credit card bill, your social security, local taxes, insurances, student debt, you name it, sort of
Yep.
death and taxes, and you can pay for both with Bitrefill.
So yes, I am like moving. So I've made like a family goal this year to like move towards getting on zero and like using Bitcoin as my base currency. So we've been direct depositing into Bitcoin. And you're right. There's the strategy that I'm using. There's effectively 5 transactions per month. There's my, so everything gets deposited to Bitcoin, and then outbound then from Bitcoin is paying my mortgage, paying off my credit card bill, and then probably like 3. There's only 2 bills I have that aren't. It's my car insurance and my, what is the other one? I just had it.
We have car insurances on Bitrefill.
Yeah.
You should look into that.
Yeah. So
I might be able to take that one off.
Exactly. So there's the mortgage payment, there's the credit card bill, and then there's the ACH bills that you can't use a credit card on. So, right. And that's, I want to just demystify this for people, that if you're getting all paid in Bitcoin, then there's really only 5 transactions per month you could, at minimum, going back then out from your Bitcoin. And Bitrefill has now plugged the hole in this. Like, one way that you used to do it is at the Bitcoin exchange that you were using, you would have to swap to dollars, then ACH out from there. But now, instead of swapping to dollars and ACHing over to the mortgage company, over to the credit card company, what do you do instead?
Yeah, well, I mean, you keep your Bitcoins in your wallet and you go on Bitrefill. There's currently a wait list for the bill pay feature, but we're working through that as fast as we can. And you'll be able to, I guess, in a similar way to how it works when you do bill pay and other services in your bank or PayPal and so on. You type in, you select which bill it is, and there's 20,000 different bill pay items that we're like working actively to categorize and figure out what everything is. You type in your bill number and how much the bill is for, and any other details, and then you click to pay, and you pay with Bitcoin, and it's usually pretty instant, and you get a confirmation. The bill pay itself, that side, can take a couple of days. You get confirmation a couple of days after that it has also been, in fact, gone through and arrived at the merchant. So I would recommend to not do that at the last day, but maybe 3 days before the expiration day of the bill items.
I wanted to draw like a parallel analogy for people so they can maybe understand how this works. And this is a complete guess on my part, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like there's the ability to like pay bills at convenience stores with cash, like where the same thing, like certain convenience stores, I think you can go in, give them the account numbers of the bills you're trying to pay, and then you can pay those with cash. Is that like, that's when I'm thinking like, how did Bitrefill jump to like 20,000 partners like immediately? Is that, can you give us a little bit more on just the
I
guts
mean,
of like,
it's the same infrastructure that we tap into. I mean, and so we work with a financial institution company that provides this service, and it's licensed under their license. So that's how we do it. And so I'm not American myself. So this
yeah,
launch is complex for me. Maybe you should actually have had Thomas on here because he's
we,
down in the nitty gritty
oh dude,
of
no,
all the details. But we plug
we'll do
into the
two.
infrastructure for this and put the payment through, and sort of we have a balance with that company that's being drawn
Yep.
from, and in the end the money reaches your utility company or
Yep.
whatever it is.
Yep.
So the big benefit here is that you can skip the step that you described earlier, where you need to sell on exchange, withdraw to your bank, then ACH, which is cumbersome, takes
Yep.
time, and
Yep.
we still hear stories from the US as well about banks giving people a hard time for receiving money from a Bitcoin exchange, and
Yep.
what is that, and this and that, and so on. And so I guess you won't be hassled from us with those things. And so it's convenient and it's fast, and we're going to be working hard on improving the UX further to make repeated bills easy and things like that, to really enable people to have that habit. We're getting pretty good from the users that we have let in. Pretty good feedback. Lots of people using it. I think credit card bills is the most popular one right now, but
Yep.
we'll see.
Yep.
It hasn't been a whole month yet, so we'll see. Once the whole cycle goes around, which
Yep.
things end up being the most popular.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. What I love about Bitrefill is like the global impact, but then again, you have very like boots on the ground people here in the US that are like, again, is talking to meetup members and producing things like for the US market. And so don't worry, we will definitely do an episode 2 with Thomas and keep diving in on that, because I'm going to run the feature through the ringer. I'm going to use it for my credit card, try it out, be able to report back to people. We'll get him, keep talking about it.
And in terms of global impact, the US isn't the first country where we launched Bill Pay, right? We launched it first in El Salvador, where we're making a big strategic visionary push, let's say. So we've had Bill Pay there for 6 months. It's been growing, more than doubling every month since launch. And getting some pretty good traction there as well. And so I think our El Salvador strategy is working out pretty well in launching things there first, figuring out the ins and outs, what are the specific things that we're not used to from gift cards or phone refills. Okay, so the bill pays have these things and those things and so on, and figure all these things out, and then roll the same out to the US of A. And it's not the last country we're going to be rolling out bill pay in as well. Obviously, we're working very hard on the team for the next country and the next country. But you'll have to watch our Twitter or email newsletter to be the first to know.
100%. The reason why I wanted to draw the parallel analogy to the convenience store example and how like I thought the partnership worked was because this feature does require an ID. So regular Bitrefill does not require an ID. But I wanted to ask you, does it require a social security card? Like when I'm reading the FAQ, it looks like it only requires identity and proof of address. So does that require, so as a US person required to have a social also?
I don't think so. I need to double check. we use an independent KYC provider as well, but
Cool.
usually it's just ID and proof of address.
Okay.
So it's
So that was
a
my
relatively
understanding.
light touch, and I mean it's a low risk product, right? You're paying into your bill that has your ID and everything, so
Right.
it's not something that's attractive for criminals anyway. But and we're not big fans of all of these KYC things, but the law is the law, and we need to make sure that we follow it. And in this case, we're doing that under in partnership with a financial institution. So there's no alternative here.
Totally. No, totally. And I don't, and like, that's what I love about what I try to do with this podcast is, again, make it right at the intersection of Bitcoin and personal finance. And like, one of these things, and when I talk to a lot of people, so we had Joel on the podcast, Joel Valenzuela, who has lived unbanked for several years. Bitrefill sponsors his podcast, like talks highly of the product, like super, super cool. And honestly, like his episode was a highly rated episode, ones that we've done. And so I know that the audience is interested in this. Me and him have gone back and forth offline, and we need to do it better on camera, but that you can do about, like, there's a very much comparison between people living in the US, honestly, like without social security cards, and people that are living fully off Bitcoin. Like there is like a similarity there, because the social security card is the linchpin for opening like these bank accounts. And so these bill pay features, whether through Bitrefill or at a convenience store or through like money orders at a convenience store or whatever, like they truly are like, that's how, so people are using a cash envelope as their bank, and then they're interfacing with one of these things to gain access to the ACH network, because the ACH network is fully gate kept in the United States. There's zero way to interact with the ACH network without logging your social security card. And so that's what Joel and I've been going, like, and I'm not like a full, like, I'm not a full no KYC like hardliner or whatever. Again, what I love about talking about personal finance is I want to dive into, if you are living fully on Bitcoin, like no KYC, like what methods are you using? And then what's super interesting is that now that used to be the only way to do it. The only way to do it, to live on Bitcoin, used to be that way. But now with these W-2 job direct deposit like paychecks, and with these Bitcoin exchanges adding in the ACH network into the exchange, you now truly are, like, you can see tweets of this. People are saying, as soon as Strike adds a debit card, as soon as, like, the Cash App like got their pay me in Bitcoin, like people are going to cut up their Wells Fargo accounts, their Bank of America accounts, their like, and they're going to use these Bitcoin exchanges as their banks. And what's interesting is that,
well, I mean,
now
the goal is to not even use that, right? I mean, the end goal is that eventually all of the edges will be smoothed out. Their employer will have Bitcoin themselves, because they will use Bitcoin and be able to pay directly, and then you can live in your wallet, right? And that's, I mean, that's the big picture vision that we're working towards. There's still obviously things left in that picture, but it's getting better. And I don't think it needs to be so binary and absolutist, to only be Bitcoin and so on. I think the more choice you give people to do that, the better. I 100% agree that what we're seeing is, we saw the transition from the traditional banks to the challenger banks. I guess Cash App and similar in the US, Revolut and other things in Europe. And then what we want to see is the next step, which is going from the challenger bank to no bank. And again, that doesn't need to be like a big binary switch. I think if you look at other such switches in history, maybe you remember when online streaming services became popular, like early Netflix, there was a movement called cord cutters, right? So let's cut the cord, and they meant literally to the cable, right? And so it's, in the beginning, it was like these enthusiast nerds that were like watching this pixely Netflix that they hooked up on a custom box and this and that. And then, gradually, and now it's like I haven't had my TV plugged in. Well, never in my current apartment, and I don't remember when my TV was even plugged in to the, not even just cable, even like regular TV network, right? You just live on your Apple TV or whatever. And so, we're still in that regard. I mean, we're still in the enthusiast stage. We're clearly, talking to one of these main enthusiasts right now, and there's a podcast which is aimed at the other such enthusiasts, and we're talking about these things. How can you solve and figure out? But it'll get there. I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, it's simple. If people want it, it will happen. And there's always a chicken and egg. Sometimes the chicken goes first, sometimes the egg goes first, but uh, we'll see.
Enthusiasm on living in Bitcoin in the United States is verifiably higher right now today than it was 12 months ago by a lot,
Right.
and
Sure.
that's exciting. Yeah, like that's super exciting. And yeah, and I agree. The cord cutter analogy I think is perfect because I think there is going to be a card cutter analogy. There is going to be, like, I put up the picture of like
Card cutter, I
my
like it.
yeah, like and your phrasing of legacy banks, challenger banks, no banks, I think is exactly perfect because we went from legacy banks. Here's the problem with Bitcoin Twitter. Like, there's a lot of talking past each other of legacy bank users talking to no bank users. And they're just like going back and forth of like, no, you have to do it this way, have to do it this way. And now there is a whole chunk of people in the middle that are now being paid in Bitcoin at the challenger banks that are now talking to the no bank people and being like, oh, because I say this thing in some of my like talks where OG Bitcoiners, I don't mean any disrespect to this, but OG Bitcoiners were great at talking about Bitcoin, but they were not great at talking about personal finance. Like, they were not great at like truly relaying
What's your
the like
definition of OG Bitcoin, just so we think?
probably like 2014 and before
Right.
is where I would call it. Yeah. I say this thing where it's like I think the 2015 class of Bitcoiners is basically the Gen X of Bitcoin. They're like caught between two, in my opinion. Like, I adopted Bitcoin in 2015,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I feel caught between these two worlds.
I agree with that. Yeah. There's definitely that.
Mhm.
Sorry, continue.
Because
You're an interesting thread here.
yeah, no, that's, I mean, yeah. So I consider kind of 2015 adopters like the Gen X of Bitcoin. I feel like they're caught between two worlds of like kind of 2014 and before, like really saw some like the gritty, like tough parts of like, what is this happening? How's it working? And then 2017, like 2017 is like the millennials, right? Like, they get a ton of like beat up because it's like, oh, you guys were the ICO guys and like you like took it semi-mainstream and ruined everything. Like, now it's all annoying. You know what I mean? Like, and so and you
Yes.
have this whole clash of things that are happening. And it's like what I feel like right now, and honestly, your product kind of is reflecting this, is like everyone is growing up. Like, everyone's growing up and the products are getting so much better. It's so easy for me to sit here on my podcast and say, guys, like, you truly can live on Bitcoin as a W-2 employee in America. Like, this is possible. Like, look, I'm talking to Sergey right now. Like, the tools are available. That in 2014 is not like the tools were not there, and the way of talking about inflation wasn't there, and the way of talking about no personal finance like this truly can work like wasn't there. And so I'm one of several people like standing on shoulders trying to piece together all these pieces and talk to like a quote unquote mainstream W-2 employee audience and say, like, you have the ability to make Bitcoin your base money, like, with all these solutions. And so, yeah, dude, I think I truly think this Bitrefill like product is plugging this hole in this that I'm excited about. But so, any comments on that, or I'm ready to pivot to something else?
Pivot.
Good. Okay, perfect. So you brought up a good point of, you said, I forget what your hook was, but I wanted to ask you about a business operating on Bitcoin. Yes, this is what it was. So W-2 employees are using challenger banks and they're typing in their checking account and their routing account at their normie job, and the fiat is direct depositing as Bitcoin. Next step over that is correct, Bitcoin at the company and the company beginning to operate. Talk to us about how Bitrefill as a company operates on Bitcoin, and what tips do you have for businesses operating on Bitcoin?
That's an excellent question. I mean, for us, we've been doing that from the start to some extent, and we have a certain flow. And whenever we can pay a bill in Bitcoin, that means we don't need to sell that Bitcoin and so on. I think, to be honest, there's a lot of fear about that among companies. How do you account it? How this and that? look, it's different in different countries. You account it as an asset. There isn't that much more to it. It gives you a lot of freedom. At Bitrefill, I don't even know. So there's like 50 people working in this company now, in I don't know how many countries. And so we always adapt, right, to what's the best and appropriate for the person, with the regulatory situation. What can we do, and so on. So some people are paid in Bitcoin. Some people are paid in other ways, more traditional. But it does give you freedom, because if you get an invoice and it has a Bitcoin address, that means you can pay, like, that person can live well wherever, really, and you don't need to figure out like what are proper ways of registering as an employer in Nigeria. Everybody figures out for themselves how to get to the stage where they can send an invoice, and from there it's pretty clear. And so it evens the playing field a lot, right? Because it used to be that an employer needs to be like, okay, we're going to hire people in Argentina. That means that we need to go to Argentina, set up this and that, figure out it's strange and they talk different from us and different laws and blah 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 blah. And now it's kind of Bitcoin as well, that it lets people figure out how you can send an invoice, and then that's that. And that is kind of, I mean, it is like Bitcoin in a way, that it's an open network where people are in different locations, countries, whatever, right? And everybody connects to it from a different way, and everybody has to figure this stuff out for themselves, what is appropriate. But so everybody takes responsibility to figure it out for themselves, but then they're connected to this global monetary network, right, where they can interact with anybody anywhere. So I don't think it's so hard to do. There's good services for this, and I mean, if you're a meaningfully sized company, you're going to have a auditor and accounting firm, stuff like that, and you find those that are not afraid of the B word, and it'll be okay. It's not so bad, and it's surprisingly often where oh, we need to pay this company there, and how the hell do we do that, and so on. And like, even, I mean, the fiat system is like, it's not great for international banking transfers. Quite often that you get a question of like, hey, you're paying someone here in Nigeria, what's that about? It's like, hey, it's none of your business,
Yep.
but then it's always creates the stuff, right, which creates work. So I would say that for companies that work on an international level, with people and companies that are across the world, it very often helps. It plugs a hole, and then you can always figure it out. But then people get their money right away. That usually makes people happy. So yeah, I think our experience there has been good. It works. We're going to try to figure out how to count sort of how many of our monthly invoices and such that we actually did pay in Bitcoin versus the old-fashioned way. But it's kind of nice to have that flexibility, and we
Right.
always try to figure out if we can pay our suppliers or other companies providing services for us. And
Talk to us about because, and I've gotten this question from, like, I'm talking to a auto body shop. Okay, so I'm talking to an auto body shop here in the US. What wallet structure, how custody, like just the classic custody question, what recommendation do you give to a small business auto body shop?
so is this a single owner, or are there
Two
multiple
partners,
people, or?
two part. Say
Yeah,
say say three partners, two
well,
50-50 and one minority.
I mean, figure out some kind of multi-sig structure for security. I mean, to be honest, I think I would maybe even not worry too much about these things in the beginning. I mean, such a business will have like a cash register, or what do you call it,
Mm-hmm.
a cash box, right? Some customers will pay in cash. So, whatever you're comfortable keeping in a cash box, you're completely fine keeping it in a wallet app on a phone. And you can
Yep.
usually, just enter the seed on the other guy's phone, and then you both have access to the same wallets. Obviously, if the amounts get bigger, then you need to look into security. But sort of to get started, just get a regular wallet, maybe one that has a good CSV export, so that you
Mm-hmm.
can send it to your accountants or what have you, because they want to see that stuff.
Yep.
Um, and I mean, realistically, I mean, it's still the case that the people that live entirely on Bitcoin are still a minority. So it's not like if you're in an auto body shop and you start accepting Bitcoin, then suddenly a big chunk of your volume is in Bitcoin, unless you're the only one that does that, and all of the Bitcoiners in the sort of greater
Yep.
Los Angeles area start coming
Yep.
to you, which might happen,
Yep.
by the way. But unless that happens, then it's going to be a trickle. It's going to be a couple of percent here and
Mm-hmm.
there, and it doesn't. The fluctuations. I mean, it doesn't make that big of a dent in
Mm-hmm.
the movement, in the context of
How
a operation.
So then, say a company was using, like, say they already had Coinbase Commerce and were accepting multiple crypto, and it was just all flowing in. And say they hit a little bit of traction, they were kind of to that second level. What then? So what's your with that company? Then they would need to have an internal policy for like how much to hold in each crypto, how much to send back for fiat, and that would just be kind of an over like. What do you think would happen in that small business? Or what would be your recommendation to them?
I don't know, man. Every business is different, so I think it's hard to give general purpose advice. Um,
What can you share?
I
What can you
mean,
share about
whatever
how
is sensible.
what what can you share about how Bitrefill treats like multiple cryptos coming in, and how you decide how much to hold of like how much to send back to fiat, how much to hold in Bitcoin, how much like how do you guys handle like receiving multiple?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're a startup and growing fast. So for us, yeah, we don't unfortunately yet have the privilege of being able to hold all that much,
Mhm.
because we need to, restock, buy more gift cards, and the more we grow, we need to buy even more gift cards and so on. Um, but we try to hold as much as we can. We accept several different cryptocurrencies. We tend to liquidate the others first, and if there's some Bitcoin left, then that gets sent to the ultra high security
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure that we have, that I'm not going to talk about.
For sure.
Um, but so yeah, I mean, it depends, right? I mean, for us, we're selling Bitcoin all the time anyway, right? So it's just a matter of like, do we sell a little bit less, a little bit more, and I guess handling the treasury side of it and making decisions. You shouldn't put all of your company's money into Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You're not selling Bitcoin; you're buying things that the company needs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, sure. Okay, whatever you want. The button is called sell. But yeah, of course. I mean, that's what a company does, right? You buy supplies, you sell it to
How
customers, and then you receive money, and you trade that money for new supplies, and so on. So,
how do you? What advice do you have, or how do you, when you're paying an employee in Bitcoin or paying a supplier in Bitcoin, help entrepreneurs wrap their head around this too? Are the contracts are still denominated in the local fiat of the country, and then it's remitted in Bitcoin, or is the contract denominated in Bitcoin? Help walk people
no,
through that.
the contract is denominated in a major fiat currency, if
Mm-hmm.
it's USD or euro or something like that. And again, like that's, I guess maybe that's a fair point. In the beginning there was always like, are we going to use this exchange rate or that exchange rate,
Yeah.
and at what exact second? I think
Yep.
after you go through that dance with somebody for the first time, the second time is going to be like, we'll use whatever rate is in the wallet. Yes, okay, go.
Yep.
And then it's good.
That's
because again, it does fluctuate a little bit. It doesn't
yep,
fluctuate that much, and we keep talking so much about trustless things in this space, right? Because of hold your own keys and all of that stuff. But like the relationship between an employer and employee, for example, is a trust-based
yep,
relationship. You screw over your employees, they're not going to show up for work, or even worse, and
yep,
vice versa, right? So
yep.
there is usually a mutual trust-based relationship, and whatever relationship you have is what you're going to have in this situation as well.
I love that you brought that up. I super love that you brought that up because truly, like that's I want to help climb over these like because there's like little mental humps that each person like hits and goes through on this. I had that happen to me. Like the first few times I was being paid in Bitcoin. You're right. Like both people, like you kind of meet and talk about the exchange rate, meet and talk about the exchange rate, and then like you're right. Eventually, you smooth right past that, and so that's a great thing for the audience to understand is that you are able to smooth right past that. And what I would say to people thinking about direct depositing their paychecks to Bitcoin also is same thing how I was saying in one payment, it kind of smooths out. Same thing over time, it smooths out. Like if you're getting paid on a 2 week schedule and you're sending bill payments to Bitrefill on a 2 week schedule, your entire life family budget is floating up and down on the exchange rate. It's floating up and down on the exchange rate. So they're definitely, and I've talked about on this podcast, like we are rewriting the personal finance advice right now. Like the old personal finance advice does not apply to the current world we're living in, the current tools that are available. And so it all has the ability to flow up and down. And so what's really cool also, I just want to shout this out, was it was awesome as a company, as Choice, being able to pay. We ended up paying Crypto Cloaks and paying BTC Pins with their Bitcoin invoices from BTC Pay Server for kind of swag we bought for the like Bitcoin conference. And so as that, I just want to super shout out my team on that. Like that was very fun being able to talk with our CFO and work with our accounting team to get those payments like remitted in Bitcoin. And so that truly was my first chance at being, I'd done it as an individual, but that was my first chance as being able to be inside a company working through like the invoicing. Because
Yeah.
something that what I've realized through doing this show and talking with more like you're running a business and talking with more people running businesses, and we met with Jeff who runs Everbowl, and they're a side shop is thinking about taking Bitcoin. I have never been a business owner. Like I've never signed paychecks. I've never like seen the spread between like an inbound product and an outbound product. Like I've never like done that. And so I don't want to be this like armchair quarterback that's like, hey, like your business needs to switch to Bitcoin. You need to switch. Like I really want to like get in the weeds like of this thing, exactly what you just talked about even down the exchange rate.
Yeah,
How do
I mean, it's
you
not about switching. That's the thing. It's just adding another possibility to your capabilities, and probably, I guess, many are going to want to have an exchange in the beginning, because then you can always adjust and this and that. And what if your customers aren't paying are not paying enough Bitcoin for you to pay your suppliers, or vice versa? And
Mhm.
right, it's not always that these flows will always match up right away, and people want to adjust. Yeah, but you also again, it's different for each company. So I don't want to sit here and either and just spit out generic advice. But
Yeah.
I mean, hey, like I know from friends that that have companies that are not in this space, and every once in a while they're like, hey, how can I get some Bitcoin? I need to pay a guy.
Mhm.
And so on, and then maybe eventually it gets to maybe you send out one invoice in Bitcoin, and then you get some Bitcoin from a customer because they
Mhm.
work with that, and so on. It is fun. It's a little bit gimmicky, right? Thing that we do in this little world. But you're right. I mean, it's completely it's magical when you type some stuff on your computer, on your phone, or whatever, and
Mhm.
on the other side something is being delivered to you, and somebody is happy, they feel like they got paid.
Yes. We ask this question sometimes. I think I skipped it in the last few episodes, but what the final question we ask is what's a Bitcoin product or service that doesn't exist yet that you wish did now? So now that bill pay exists and we plugged that hole, what do you think? And it doesn't have to be a Bitrefill roadmap thing. What just you surveying like the Bitcoin landscape, what's something that you would love to see?
I think, I mean, obviously, I want to see the other half of the circle in the circular economy, right? So things that allow people to earn and get paid in Bitcoin. There are a lot of good services. Stackwork is one of my personal favorites. I'm waiting for someone to build a good Upwork, and there's been a lot of those. People have tried. None that has really taken off well enough. Probably because there's a lot of UX stuff. I think it's complex to build the entirety of Upwork. It's very easy to build a quick and dirty, simplistic thing, but eventually, I think things like that would be very useful. At the same time, these companies, I don't know if they need to be Bitcoin specific, because not all work is about Bitcoin. Sometimes you just want to hire a graphic designer to make a graphic design, and they're going to be on platforms where graphic designers hang out. And it's not always the case that you need a Bitcoin graphic designer. Maybe you just need a graphic designer. And so, figuring out how to get these services, the ones that exist, to start using Bitcoin, or I guess Bitcoiners building things that also support Bitcoin, but not only. I think those things are important for bridging the gaps. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's generally, I want to see. That's the thing is, how can I put it? Nobody below the age of 50 talks about an internet company these days.
I have a good way to put it. Do you want to hear my way of putting it? Because I fully agree with you. Fully agree with you. I've been saying, like, don't join the Bitcoin industry. Bring Bitcoin to your industry. Like Bitcoin, like, people try to parse words and they're like, there is no Bitcoin community, like, because Bitcoin is this open source software that has applications everywhere. I still like the word community. Where I would like kind of parse words is I would say there is no Bitcoin industry. Like when we talk about the Bitcoin industry, like I'd prefer like Bitcoin is like the future open source money that is moving into all industries. Like, so I completely agree with you that it would be very cool to watch like Airbnb add the Bitcoin, Upwork add the Bitcoin. Like exactly. Because then that creates inflow to everything that like the Bitcoin industry is building. Like there's millions of potential Bitrefill users out there that are still getting paid with bad ACH remittances on these other websites, and people that are hosting their apartments in bad ACH other currencies that are not working for them and their family. That there is a better option that's now available, and we need these companies to pull up to the Bitcoin repos and start installing it, to literally solve the issues that they're having. So no, I fully agree with you.
Yeah.
Cool. Sergej, dude, thanks so much for your time today. Close us out. Like, tell us where people can follow you on Twitter and how they can sign up for Bitrefill.
Well, you go to bitrefill.com, and if you're in the US, there's going to be a thing about bill pay. You can sign up for the waitlist. You find me on Twitter at Zigamon, or just type in my name. I'm sure there's going to be a link in the bio of this podcast.
We got you.
So just click that thing. It's weird to spell my name. You'll figure it out. But yeah, happy to hear from listeners and users, or both. And yeah, thank you so much, man. It's been a fun conversation. It's like invigorating hearing your attitude to all of these things.
Dude, no, thank you. All right, guys, thanks so much for listening. Yes, tweet Sergej and me on Twitter. Tell us what you're doing with your personal finances, something that has shifted that you're working on, recently, because we want to know. And thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Hey all, this is Brian. You can reach me on Twitter at Brain Harrington. Shoot me a DM with any feedback from today's episode. This has been a Choice App production. Bitcoin is becoming centric to personal finance, and we want to help you learn how to better engage with Bitcoin financial services. None of this is financial advice and is for education and entertainment only.